I did it level by level. We had these one-pagers translated into something like 32, 33 languages. That brought us the victory.
We vote as a people for traditional marriage. How did you pull that off?
Everything I wrote, I prayed about to make sure that it conveyed the truth and the sincerity of what we were trying to accomplish. I felt like I was called by God. I felt like I was moved by the hand of God to come out to California to do this. But I do feel betrayed by the people who decided that the way to cement Proposition 8 in law was to go through a corrupt judicial system and put all their faith in the Supreme Court. This is marriage. We cannot deviate from God's law. I don't do things for money, and I have a bank account to prove it.
This episode is brought to you by Tiny 3D Temples. For more information on Tiny 3D Temples, make sure you guys visit the link in the description. I have not thought, oh my gosh, about anybody in a long time until I was on a bus with you driving past the Golan Heights, I think it was, in Israel.
Yeah.
Where you said a sentence where you said, yeah, well, back when we were planning Proposition 8, and I remember being like, what? Wait, huh? You did that? And then it blew my mind that, like, we never think of, like, who came up with the grassroots campaign that would ultimately end up being Proposition 8, which is, like, the greatest geopolitical religious anomaly in American history, at least in my adult lifetime. And I don't think any members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, excluding obviously Grand Blanc, Michigan, which just recently happened, actually like paid a heavier price socially, not physically, for putting their faith into practice, obedience, whatever you want to call it, than the California members that had really gone nose to the grindstone during Proposition 8. So you were part of planning Proposition 8? Like, what was...
Let me tell you how it started.
What's the real backstory?
Sure. It started, it was 2008. I had just left a job.
Okay.
Came to California, left Washington, D.C., came out here and thought, I'm going to spend the summer in California. My family was out here. We were visiting. We used to put all the kids in the backyard of their cousin's house. They'd sleep on cots, and we would we'd move into one of their bedrooms, and all the kids would be on the cots in the backyard. And I had only been here maybe 3-4 days when I heard about Prop 8. And I said, well, who's running the campaign? Who's the one coming up with the tactical campaign, the strategic campaign?
Wait, so you were kind of carpetbagging a little bit.
Oh, yeah. I'm a Virginian now.
Yeah.
but I'm a native.
Okay.
I'm a native Californian. And, you know, we used to say we talk of California, we preach of California, we teach our children about California so that they may know, you know, what
to which state to move out of.
California's in our blood. My wife's from California.
Okay.
We came out here every summer, and I was just here for the summer, and I found out that the one guy who was in charge of all of it statewide lived 10 minutes away from my in-laws. And
this is before anybody knew what Proposition 8 was going to become.
They kind of knew. This was July. This was July of 2008.
Okay.
So they knew what it was going to become, but there was no plan for how they were going to win it. Well, I'm an old grassroots voter turnout guy. I had done it for all kinds of campaigns, presidential campaigns, congressional campaigns, what have you. And I knew what to do. And they said, well, the guy lives right here and we know him and he's in our stake. So I just called him up and I said, I'm so-and-so's brother-in-law, got your name and number from him. I hear you're in charge of this. I've worked with a fellow he was a former RNC chair, Dick Richards.
Okay.
I didn't know at the time that Dick Richards and this guy really did not like one another, so dropping his name wasn't really helpful.
Also, I just realized a guy named Dick and Richards.
Yeah.
In this, so he was really Richard Richards?
Richard Richards.
Oh, yeah.
You can. There's a foundation associated. I think it's Weber State University, the Richard Richards Center for Ethics in Government, or something like that.
Okay, all right.
He was Mr. Grassroots. He was the guy that won the Oregon primary, which back then was significant and early for Ronald Reagan, and he was Ronald Reagan's first Republican National Committee director. He had the bona fides for winning elections.
Okay.
And so I just said, listen, you know, I know what to do. I know how to get voters out. And this guy listened to me talk. He said, why don't you come over to my house and plan to spend a little time over here? So I went over, and he said, I have to submit a plan by tonight. And he said, I did not know what I was going to recommend, but it sounds like you know what you're talking about. And I said, I do. You know, honestly, I do. And we sat there for 5, 6, 7 hours. I don't remember how long. It was dark when we were done, and well past dark when we were done. And it was a Sunday afternoon. And I said, listen, here's the thing. You have to have a whole bunch of jobs that you need people to do, because there are some people who absolutely cannot knock on a door, but they can make a phone call. And there are others who can't do either one, but they will enter data for you. You have to have someone entering data every single night. You can't, where most grassroots campaigns, this is long before I-360 and going door to door with an iPad or a tablet or something, and where it's all immediately tabulated. You tabulated it on paper, and then you gave the paper to somebody who had to type it into a database.
I remember, we would have to meet up in
fill
groups,
in a circle.
And it was old school, OG politics.
Total OG. And I said, where it always breaks down is nobody enters the data. The idea is you spend the first 3 months or 2 months identifying who your voters are, so you know exactly who's going to vote yes. And then you spend the last week making sure that every one of those people you spent 3 months identifying actually shows up to vote.
Okay, so you're saying that the church was literally only 3 or 4 hours away from not having any plan for Proposition 8 before you, at least the grassroots part, before you basically just cold called a guy you didn't even know and offered to help? The only thing I'll quibble with there is the church. This was that all the church did was encourage the members to get involved in this. And this guy was a member of the church, and I was a member of the church, and many of us on that. So church with a little c, not church with a big C. Okay,
no,
I get it.
Yeah, and the church's only role was to encourage people to get involved. We were officially consultants to the Yes on 8 campaign, which was run by some professional political consultants. I don't know what most of your viewers know about political consultants, but to me, they're the scum of the earth, because they come and they say, we know how to do this. This political consulting firm, their idea of a grassroots campaign was they got a study from Yale, from the Yale Political Science Department, that did a poli-sci comparison and came up with a shocking revelation that the most effective way to get people to vote for you is to knock on their door and ask them in person. Duh.
Wow.
You know, we've known that since the days of Tammany Hall.
Profound.
Yeah. But they had never actually done it. I had taken teams of people to battleground states all over the country to knock on doors, make phone calls, do whatever it took to turn out voters. And there are all kinds of ways to do it. So we had people making phone calls. We had people knocking on doors. We had people entering data. We had data analysts who worked. We had one guy, he's the real unsung hero of it. And I won't say his name because it would destroy his career. He worked for Apple.
Really?
He worked for Apple. And, boy, they've got to have a million guys who do this. I hope I'm not. I don't know enough about tech to know whether this is going to identify him. But he was a random number generator. And every part of encryption depends on having a random number.
Okay.
That's the foundational piece for any kind of encryption.
Okay.
And that's what he did. And I don't understand it enough to know how hard it is. I just know it's really hard. This guy did all kinds of data analysis for us over the course of the time. And toward the end of it all, we needed door hangers printed up for the final weekend that said to the person that were coded by precinct and voting place. And nobody in the state of California could do that. This guy went 3, 4, 5 nights without sleep, and he took all our entire database of, I forget how many millions of voters that we had identified as yes on 8 voters, and he separated them precinct by precinct so that on the door hanger we knew if Joe Vaca goes and hangs the little thing on your doorknob that says Election Day is Tuesday and you go vote at Franklin Elementary School on Elm Street, that we were getting it to the right place. Otherwise, there are so many people that wouldn't vote because they've never really voted and they can't remember where and they can't remember how it's done. That was one of the things that we did, and it was just finding this guy that said, I can help. Very shy guy, not, I'm a very gregarious, outgoing guy. This guy's shy and retiring, but he did that. And so on that Sunday afternoon, we crafted a set of an outline of a plan and a set of jobs, functions that we needed. We needed precinct captains. We needed, what did we call them? I forget. We had another name for a larger region. And they were coordinators, and they would coordinate the volunteers in their geographical boundaries. And then we had people who would funnel the information forward. And so all of the things, the one not battle, but the one argument that I lost is I did not want to start out knocking on doors. I wanted to start out with robocalling, which was legal back then, just a screening robocall. Do you support Prop 8 or do you not?
To weed out the list.
Out the list. And then I wanted to go to phone calling, and only then did I want to knock on doors, because that would have saved the door knockers from knocking on a lot of hostile doors.
Yeah.
We could have weeded out the hostiles right from the beginning. This was 7 hours. I didn't have credibility with the guy yet. I lost that argument.
Okay. Well, I guess outside of Donald Trump's victory in 2016, I can't think of a more out of place.
That's right.
And controversial victory in politics.
That's right.
Than in the great, most liberal republic of the West. We vote as a people for traditional marriage.
Yeah.
How did you pull that off?
Well, I mean, it's a little bit self-centered to say I pulled it off. I had a partner, and I won't say his name because I don't have his permission to talk about this.
By the way, that just reiterates how big this victory was. We're nearly 20 years later, and you're still mortified of naming who was involved.
Because people's lives and careers and livelihoods were destroyed simply for writing a $200 check. Because the opposition to it was so vicious and so virulent that they tried to destroy anybody they could identify. Why they didn't come after me? I was identified online. Somebody leaked an email that I sent, or a couple of emails that I sent to people saying, look, we need this or we need that. But everything I wrote, I prayed about, and before I wrote it, and then I prayed about it again before I sent it to make sure that it conveyed the truth and the sincerity of what we were trying to accomplish. I think even back then, every single person, at least in California, if not the nation, had either a loved one or a very close friend who was gay. And we had a little slogan in our community of organizers that said, there is nothing about gay marriage that will scar your soul more than hatred will. So if you cannot engage in this campaign in a spirit of love, if you're motivated by hatred, this is not your fight. This is not a fight you should be engaged in. And because we were conscious that and this was not just the LDS community, this was every religious community. It was largely a Christian effort.
The Catholics, it was some of the evangelicals, it was the Knights of Columbus.
Yes.
I didn't even know who they were.
They were marvelous. They were marvelous. And they went so far as to share with us their database of membership so that we could add them to our appeals. We swore solemnly that we would not abuse it. We would use it only this once, and I kept that promise. I deleted the database. Only I had that database.
Come on.
And
you got a hard drive in the back of your Toyota Corolla.
Huh? Oh, sorry. You confused me for a minute there. Come on, have mercy on a boomer. I can't keep up. I can't keep up. I took a 5-hour energy so I could try to keep up with you here.
See, it's all about ketone IQ now.
Oh, that's right.
Catch up.
That's exactly right.
That and creatine. That's what they're all pushing now.
I take my creatine. I take that every day.
So, what did you like?
So
bro,
the other
how
thing,
did you pull this off?
The other thing we did, and my partner in this, my unnamed partner, felt the same way I did. We looked at each other and we said, we cannot make this a Republican-Democrat election. We cannot win by going to the traditional, reverse J of Republican politics in California. We have to go outside the traditional GOP community. And what really drove it were the first generation Americans, the ethnic communities that still spoke a foreign language at home. They were what saved the election. And
really,
this was my brainchild, my great brainchild was, I just went to the DMV website. And if the California DMV offered the driving exam in a language, I found somebody that could speak that language, had them translate. We had a 1-page, very simple document that said, here are the unintended consequences of passing gay marriage that have really very little to do with anybody gay, but have everything to do with opening the door to other things that you haven't even dreamed of. Everything we predicted came true. But all we did was we went to every one of these ethnic communities and we said, if you vote yes on 8, that means no gay marriage. And here's this document. And the translations, here's the thing, a lot of political people, especially the Republican Party, they're so brain dead when it comes to reaching out to non-English speaking people and to first generation Americans. They have no clue how to do it. And when I've been trying to do this in Virginia for the last couple of years, and when I said we need to translate things into Korean, into Vietnamese, into these languages that are so prevalent in Northern Virginia, they said, "Oh, we don't have a budget for that." I said, "Forget the budget. Just put up a web page, and I will give you the content."
Get a volunteer. Yeah.
Exactly. And you know how you get a volunteer? You know how you get a free translation? First, you do a Google Translate document, and then you give it to a native speaker and say, "Does this look right to you?" And that native speaker gets out his red pencil and says, "Oh, this is terrible," and corrects it. Because the greatest human urge in the history of the world is not love, it's not sex, it's not money. It's the urge to correct somebody else's copy. And they all sat down, and then I gave it to another guy, and then I gave it to another guy, and then I found somebody who speaks level 5 of that language, a university professor type, and they would put it in literary or newspaper quality language. All volunteers, all just saying, "Do you mind looking this over?" And nobody spent more than 30 minutes of their own time, because I did it level by level. And by the end, we had these one-pagers translated into something like 32, 33 languages. And that brought us the victory. Did you know, Cardone?
Okay.
Did you know that there are 80,000 Russian evangelical Christians in Oakland County, California?
No.
I did not know that until 2008.
But 80,000 is a significant minority.
That's a significant number. And every one of them wanted, our challenge with that community was to tell them, just vote, don't beat anybody up, just vote. They were, very passionate. But I went to...
Don't beat anybody up, just vote.
I went to imams up and down the state. I went to a guy who is a Sayyid, a descendant of the Prophet Muhammad. I'm fluent in Arabic. I've spent a career in the Middle East. And I went to him and I spoke to him and I said, we need your help. And he said, we're coming under great pressure from the Democrats to vote no on this. And they're telling us this is a Republican program. We, the Democrats, have stood by you when Republicans were treating you badly, when they were treating you as if you were lesser people. When 9/11 happened,
post-war on terror, when there was a
post 9/11, all of the anti-Islamic stuff, we Democrats have stood beside you. And he said, I told them, yes, you have, and we appreciate it, but this is God's law. We cannot deviate from God's law. This is marriage, and we will not deviate. And that guy sent it out to the imams of I don't know how many hundreds of mosques, and they sent it out to their friends and to their friends. And community after community after community that traditionally voted Democrat because they bought the lie that Republicans are racist. Republicans aren't racist, they're just awkward. I mean, it's my big fat Greek wedding. It's his parents sitting there meeting her parents and, primly offering them a piece of whatever it was, some bland cake, and trying to figure out how to talk to these wild, hairy people waving their arms around and shouting. That's the Republican Party. It's his parents in my big fat Greek wedding. Well, you
did say something very interesting, that it was like pulling teeth to get them to translate into other languages.
Yes.
And a common colloquial criticism of Republicans in general, especially throughout the early 2000s, was racism, xenophobia.
Right.
Whites, going so far as saying white supremacy, so on and so forth. And it sounds like your experience would kind of play into that.
That's right.
What's there? What was their aversion? Because I mean, if you're trying to convince the listener that Republicans aren't racist, but then you talk about how they have, it's like pulling teeth to get them even translate, sacred cow initiatives into other languages. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're not really disproving that
Yeah. Well, I mean, the reason they're doing it isn't out of racism. It's not a feeling like those people are inferior to us.
It's incompetence.
It's incompetence, and it's fear of feeling awkward. I don't know how to talk to somebody who uses a lot of turmeric in their food. You know, I don't know how to talk to somebody who has garlic breath. I don't know, you know. I don't know
I don't know what you're referencing with garlic breath, but turmeric, that is hilarious.
Yeah, I mean,
funny.
Come on. It's a fear of not fitting it. When my wife and I first got married, we'd been married, April, May, June, July, August, 4 months, and I took that poor little girl out of Utah to Washington, D.C. She had been in 4 states and had visited Tijuana. Other than that, that was the limit of her geographical experience. And there we were riding the subway into downtown Washington every day, where we were literally the only 2 white people on the subway car that was packed cheek by jowl. I mean, you were literally squeezed into a subway car. And we learned within about 2 weeks to feel completely comfortable in that environment. It was the best thing that could have happened to us. We learned to just look at people and say, you are one of God's children and I love you. Even if you look at me and you're looking at me really suspicious as they did because we were friendly. And every once in a while somebody'd say, what are you grinning about? And we'd say, just not grinning, just friendly. They'd say, but then they'd see us again the next day and the next, and eventually, you know, most Republican white people have not gone through that, where they are the minority in a room. That's the real barrier, is being comfortable when you are the minority in the room and understanding this is what racial and ethnic minorities go through every time they walk into most rooms. They are the minority. They get used to it. We need to get used to it. And that's all it is. It's not racism. It's just a lack of familiarity. My kids, when they lived in Utah, or still, some of them still live in Utah, they are hungry for the sight of somebody who's African American. They find there's a barbecue place that has a truck, and they ordered from it one time, and 2 guys drove up, and it was 2 black guys, and my daughter ran out and said, "Oh, thank goodness! We want
the real stuff.
We want you guys to come every week, because we just miss being around black people." Because we sent them to a high school that was the white flight high school. Everybody else was moving out of our neighborhood when we moved in because they didn't want their kids going to the UN school. We chose the school because we did.
You mean the school that they were leaving from?
Yeah, all the white people were leaving from that school. We moved in to that district, and then by the time my 2 younger kids came into high school, we moved them to a different. We got an out of district assignment because that school had become an MS-13 base, and so it was physically not safe. But
I can kind of empathize with some of what you said, because I do remember when I went to BYU, I remember I was walking into the movie theater of a mall that was 2 exits down the freeway.
Yeah.
And I'd spent so much time after new student orientation getting used to the very wholesome environment of Provo and being on campus, that when I smelled somebody smoking, I realized it had been literally probably 6 months. Yeah. And I remember as I smelt it, I immediately thought, this smells like home.
Yes, it smells like home. That's how I've always felt about coffee, because my grandma drank coffee, and both of my grandmas did. And if I walked into,
it just took me back to Los Angeles, and I remember having a positive. I don't smoke, never have. Yeah. But I had a positive reaction of oh, I'm home.
I tried to smoke in high school, but I didn't like cigarettes. I had a pipe because, Gandalf and all. Gandalf always smoked a pipe. And I was like 13, 14, and I had a pipe, and I'd try and smoke. And I looked like an absolute idiot. But I was certain that I was cool because it was a pipe.
You were just bringing Gandalf back, bro.
I was bringing Gandalf back.
Okay, so if I understand you correctly, you're saying what one Proposition 8, arguably, throw Mondami in there maybe in New York as a distant third, but easily top 2 political
No, Mondani
upset.
wasn't a shock. That wasn't a shock.
Okay, sure, fine. Wasn't a shock, but either way, doesn't affect
the Trump in 2016 and Prop 8 in 2008 were the biggest earthquakes in in American politics of this age.
You think that really the reason Proposition 8 passed, from your grassroots perspective, was because of so much outreach to first generation immigrants?
There were let me see if I can do this, but maybe 4 reasons. That was the number one reason, hands down. The number 2 reason was all of the people who were making phone calls and knocking on doors. And we had a pollster, the guy that I reported to is a political pollster. He's the best pollster in the business. And how do I know it? Because he was polling every day, and he was doing a sample size of maybe, I forget, 550, 600 a day. And you know what we had while he was doing that? We had a sample of people turning in their door knocking results and their phone banking results of about 26,000 every day. And his polling and these real life results with sample sizes of about 25,000 per day marched exactly in lockstep. He's now retired, but if I needed a pollster, this is the guy I would hire. And his secret was he had a couple of follow-up questions. And there's a currently operating polling group that I think was mentored by this guy, and that's the Trafalgar Group.
Okay.
And because the reason I think they were mentored by him is they have the same secret sauce. And here's the secret sauce. After asking all the questions, they'd ask, what do you think your neighbors, how do you think your neighbors are voting on this issue? How do you think most people in the state, county, nation are voting on this issue? And that's when the people who don't tell you their real opinion will tell you what they really think. That's where you get the truth. And that's how he weighted his polls, was by the answers to those questions. So we had these, over 20,000 people a day being identified as yes on 8 voters for 3 months? We started in earnest in August. So August, September, October, a little over 90 days, maybe 100, 110 days, 105 days. And having that database of yes voters, and then having sufficient volunteers to make sure on that final weekend that every one of those voters got turned out to vote on Election Day on Tuesday. Those are the 2 big things. A third one was we used electronic methods to reach out to these ethnic communities.
Technologically advanced.
Technologically advanced and old style. So for the last, I forget how many, I think 5 days, maybe 6 days of the campaign, I owned Chinese language radio in Northern California and Southern California, morning and evening drive time. And I did that for $30,000.
Really?
That's all it cost. We placed ads in foreign language newspapers. And again, it costs like $500 for a half-page ad,
Wow,
or 800 for a full-page ad.
Hey guys, we're going to pause the video here just for a second to highlight one of our sponsors. We are super grateful for the sponsorship of Tiny 3D Temples. They are a company that produces all kinds of LDS decor. You can see it around our studio. And not only do they help us financially with the program, but they also provide us with all of these cool giveaways for listeners of our program.
It is absolutely beautiful.
This is a beautiful temple in Curitiba, Brazil.
And we are super grateful for their sponsorship. And if you would like to know more, please make sure you guys check them out at tiny3dtemples.com.
And then I got a phone call from a young guy, because what I did, I crowdsourced these ideas. I keep saying I because I'm egotistical and, I want to brag that I did this and I did that. But I'm getting a cramp in my leg here. There we go.
I'm glad we worked that out.
Yes. So I communicated on a daily basis with these regional coordinators and these precinct coordinators. And I would say, we need ideas for this. And I would get 300 answers because I was coordinating with 12,000 people statewide. And I'd get 300 answers and suggestions, and I would go through them. I got a phone call from a guy, and he said, this is a young guy, 20-something. He said, I work for Google. And he said, we have a brand new advertising offering. We're calling it Google Ads. He said, we've been doing this for less than a month. And we can place an ad on virtually any website. And so I went out and raised some money, and we placed an ad that covered 24 hours from 5 o'clock Monday evening till 5 o'clock Tuesday evening. I said, let the Democrats have, or let the No on 8 people have the last 2 hours before the polls close. I want to get them from 5 till 5. And so on every web page in California, there were Yes on 8 ads. And it cost almost nothing compared. Now to do that would cost hundreds of millions of dollars. Then it was hundreds of thousands. And I had struck out several websites. I said, don't put it on websites that cater
like Playboy or something.
Yeah, no porn. And I said, and I don't want it to cater to the gay community because it will just remind them that there's an election, and I don't want them to see the ad.
Okay.
I'm hoping they'll forget, which was naive of me. Well, somehow that instruction.
Oh, you just hope they'll forget.
Yeah. So I know, stupid. But somehow that
maybe the Jews will forget the Sabbath too. Okay.
That instruction was ignored, and it went on every single website except the porn websites in the state. And when I saw that it was going out on the websites of groups that were, hardcore opposed to Prop 8, I thought, oh, this is a disaster. Well, it wasn't. It turned out to be the best thing that could have happened because they all started calling and shutting down the websites that were trying to turn out their voters. They were being shut down by angry people saying, I can't believe you're so greedy. You took money from the Yes on 8 people. And they said, we don't know where this ad came from. We didn't pay for it. We didn't get money for it. And so for the first 6 hours of election day, that sowed confusion and discord within the No on 8 community. And that contributed to at least a percentage point of our victory, our margin of victory. And here's the last thing, the fourth thing that I credit.
Okay.
Had a guy call me, again, out of the blue. He said, I work for a robocalling company, and we don't do political robocalls. We do debt collection. And we have an enormous network. They've shifted to another business by now, another industry by now, because all the laws about robocalling made it too restrictive for them. But he said, we can literally call 10 million people in 24 hours. And he said, we'll do it at our cost, which is about 0.016 of a cent per call. He said, we usually charge 8 to 12 cents. He said, our margins are enormous.
Jeez.
Yeah. It was a great industry.
I was going to say, I could screw podcasting.
Yeah.
I'm going robocalling.
Yeah, you're printing money there.
Yeah.
And so we called, we used that to reach out to the African American voters. And we had I think it was 22 second message. And I had a family member, was an old guy who used to do radio back in the days when radio was the one medium. There was no television.
Okay.
Great voice. And I had him do the voiceover. I think I can still quote you the message by name.
The copy, okay.
Listen to Barack Obama. Listen to Barack Obama's opinion about gay marriage. And then I just lifted the audio from a YouTube video.
Debate. Where he had a debate.
Where he was there with, it was a sit down. It was a town hall meeting with Rick Warren of the Saddleback Church. He and John McCain. And Rick Warren said, where do you stand on gay marriage? And Barack Obama said,
they both affirmed traditional marriage.
That's right. He said, I believe marriage is a union between a man and a woman. And it's a sacred union. God has to be in the mix. And I lifted that, and then my
So it was
voice
more religious than political.
Right.
Interesting.
And that was his statement, unprompted. And then my voiceover guy said, if you agree with Barack Obama that marriage is a union between one man and one woman, vote yes on Proposition 8 tomorrow. And that went to 10 million homes, African-American homes in the state of California.
Wow.
10 million voters. And
so, okay. So first off, incredible. Yes, because I remember looking at the African-American voting numbers then, and that's what pushed it over the edge. Nobody wanted to say anything because, you can't out liberal and argue against, this liberal sacred cow for that liberal sacred cow.
Exactly.
Right? And I want to step back, I guess, from the strategy then. Okay, I get it. You're a grassroots genius. And
I'm not a genius. I'm not. I had good ideas, solid ideas that go back to Tammany Hall organizing.
Okay, fine.
And I outsourced it, crowdsourced it to all these people. And,
And Google. Okay, so here's my question. This is the only question I have. Do you ever feel like Proposition 8 was a waste?
No. But I do feel betrayed by the people who decided that the way to cement Proposition 8 in law was to go through a corrupt judicial system and put all their faith in the Supreme Court to make the right decision. I feel betrayed by that. And I feel somewhat betrayed by people who are weak in their defense of traditional marriage now, especially people inside the church. Because I did this, I felt like I was called by God. I felt like I was moved by the hand of God to come out to California to do this. I felt like I was inspired, like all the best ideas I had ever seen came flooding into me that Sunday afternoon when I was at the house of this man who became just a very, very dear friend, like a family member to me, but was a stranger to me at the time. I felt like I was led by the Spirit, not knowing beforehand what I was going to do. And then because the backlash was so great, a lot of people blinked. And when I see people trying to shade church doctrine or to change church doctrine or to say to somebody gay, there are people in my life whom I love deeply, dearly, who are gay, who are members of the church. And I'm thinking of one person in particular. When he first was told by people, you're gay, it's all right. You go live your best gay life. These commandments don't apply to you. That was the most unwelcoming thing anybody could say to him, because he still had faith in God. He still had faith that the church was true. And if he had to choose one part of his identity over another part and then say, okay, well, if the commandments don't apply to me, then neither does the kingdom of heaven. And that means that God made a mistake, and that means that I'm not included in God's plan. They were trying to be welcoming and kind and to have this, wonderful person to be their friend. And what they did was send him off into a spiral of confusion and drug abuse, and he nearly died. And I hold those people responsible. I'm not a good enough Christian yet to have forgiven them. My wife is. She's sweet and kind and good. I'm from Bakersfield. Sweet and kind and good people don't make it to 18 in Bakersfield, or they don't make it past 18.
So here's my last question. Why did we not, why did the church, big C and little c, why did the church fight so hard to pass Proposition 8 and then basically completely abandon its reinforcement afterwards? Do you have any insight on that?
I don't. All I know is that it feels like a knife twisting, that backing off. I trust that the leaders of the church are inspired, and I trust that they follow the counsel of the Lord. I don't understand it. One of my most prized, I'll tell you a story. Let's see, this must have been mid-September of 2008. We came out here. No, we weren't being paid to do this. I wasn't being paid to do it. I was just doing it. And it turned into, 18 to 20 hour days, 6, even 7 days a week. I couldn't stop doing it. I considered it a valid Sabbath activity. And I worked 7 days a week for, at that point I was, so July, August, September, October, I was into it maybe 70, 75 days. I hadn't earned any money. I told you I had left a job, and I just figured I just have to finish this. And I got a phone call mid-September from a friend of mine that I'd worked with at the RNC, and he said, the McCain campaign wants to hire you to go organize, I think it was Ohio, some battleground state where I had worked before. They'll pay you $30,000.
It's a lot of money back then.
A lot of money. Would have paid, our debts, at least gotten us to zero.
Let me guess, you didn't do it.
We prayed and we fasted, and we decided that if we had to sell, and we said this in a prayer, if we have to sell our house, move in with family, start over, and that would have meant selling it at a loss. That was not a seller's market in 2008. If you remember, the mortgage crisis was hitting.
Yeah.
And
I graduated into that.
Well,
April 2007 was when I graduated, and then 2008 happens. Yeah.
Your generation has a lot to be angry at my generation for. It wasn't me. It wasn't
company
me.
is excluded.
But my generation has bent your generation and every succeeding generation over a log and picked your pockets so that we could live large, and we're going to die, and you're going to be stuck with $37 trillion in debt that we ran up, the boomers ran up, because we were profligate. Again, it wasn't me. And the only mitigating factor is it's your generation and the younger ones that are voting for the boomers that are doing this to you. Anyway, we essentially laid our house on the altar and said, Heavenly Father, we're willing to give this up. We feel if I had walked away from Prop 8 at that point, it all would have collapsed. Nothing we had done up to then would have mattered, because by then I was the linchpin that was holding it all together. I was the guy getting all these suggestions, from 12,000, 16,000 people every day. And if I had walked away, it would have collapsed. And so we made that decision. And 2 or 3 days later, I got a phone call saying, somebody has donated a significant amount of money to an organization that is going to pay you and my partner, the mysterious, the gray ghost partner, the white ghost, I called him actually, the white ghost partner. We're going to pay each of you. And you know how much they paid us?
$30,000.
$30,000.
Oh, wow.
We didn't name the figure. They did. And it was enough to settle our debts and get us to zero. And we had like $3,000 or $4,000 left over to pay our bills in December. And I've always felt like that was, Abraham laying Isaac on the stone. Because we genuinely were willing to sell our home at a loss. And, we paid $210,000 for it. We probably would have been able to get $160,000, $180,000 for it then. It's now worth, according to Zillow, about $750,000. So being able to keep that home has been an enormous financial blessing to us. But we were willing to give it up because it was the right thing to do. And
would you do it again?
In a heartbeat. Because I didn't do it for any reason other than to follow the counsel of the prophet, and because even if the prophet had not counseled me to do it, I would have done it because it is a correct principle. It is a correct principle. I still do work. I'm a partisan Republican. I really despise a good deal of the Republican Party, but they are somewhat better than the Democrat Party. And I mean, I'll say this again another time when we're doing a show. I think every single Latter-day Saint should be involved in a political party, and it should be either the Republicans or the Democrats, not the Libertarians, not the Greens, not the fringe parties. It should be one of the two main parties, and they should be trying to get that party to hew to principles that they know are correct. I could make an argument for being a Democrat. I could say, they're more interested in caring for the less fortunate and blah, blah, blah. I think every way they go about it is wrong-headed, and I think most of them are very cynical and they couldn't care less about the less fortunate. It's just a way that they're glutting themselves. But if you believe that, great. Go in, take over the Democrat Party and make it a more decent party. Make it what it used to be. Otherwise, get involved with the Republican Party and get the corruption out of it. Get the corrupt people out of it and make people be more responsive. We should be involved in all of that. But we can go into that on another occasion. But yes, I would do it again. I I don't do things for money, and I have a bank account to prove it. I do things that are the right things to do. I've on social media, my most active, my most energetic interactions on social media are with people in South Korea, because 6 months ago they had an election and they elected a communist government that is fomenting, instigating a communist takeover of a super capitalist pro-American country. And I'm not a Korea expert, but I am an expert on communism, and I know it when I see it, and I've been calling it out. Nobody's paying me to do that. I spend a lot of time on matters involving South Korea now. I'm not getting paid for it. I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do. That wasn't a prophetic admonition. I know the right thing when I see it. And one of my two favorite scriptures, my favorite scripture is Helaman 10:4. Blessed art thou, Nephi, for I have seen how thou hast with unwearyingness done the things I've commanded you to do. And the other is Doctrine and Covenants. I never get the numbers right. 63:27, 67:23. I'm probably wrong there, but be anxiously engaged in a good cause. And I think the Lord said, don't sit on your fat backside. I think that's how he said it.
Yeah.
Waiting to be told what to do. It is not meet that you should be commanded in all things. You should do things of your own accord. And I'm pretty sure fat backside is in there somewhere.
Yeah, big back. That's what they say now. That's what Gen Alpha and Gen Z says. Big back.
Big back. Big back.
Yeah, he's a big back. If you're eating too much, you're a big back.
Big back. Yeah, well, that's in, maybe that's in the Pearl of Great Price, but I think it's in the Doctrine and Covenants.
All right, Bart. Wow, this is crazy. I just, it's wild when you get to peer back the curtain and see the wizard behind the curtain. I'm aware that you say that there were other wizards behind this curtain, but I remember it, and I remember it well. And I still think so much happens so quickly. Most people don't think to look back and wonder, but at some point all of us do. How did they pull that off?
Yeah, that's how.
And that's how.
I want to say one more thing about the heroes of Prop 8. I'll tell you about a family that I know that's very close to me.
Okay.
They were in dire financial straits, and they were asked to contribute money to the effort if they could. And so they made a decision that they would go without fresh vegetables for a month so that they could donate $200 to Proposition 8.
Whoa.
There's a family with 3 small to teenage children, growing children. And that was the sacrifice that they made, in addition to, one of these people is so shy and so conflict averse. She's the one, you've probably seen the YouTube video where the guy says, my wife will never tell me where she wants to go out to dinner, so I'm going to trick her and say, guess where I'm taking you to dinner. You will never guess. You have to guess.
Yeah.
And then she says to, such and such, and he said, yes, that's it. That's this woman. She's so conflict averse, she won't tell you what she wants for fear that maybe you don't want that. And she went out and knocked on doors. She could only do it a couple of times.
Okay.
But she made herself do it. Those sacrifices, that's the emotional equivalent of blood. And they made those, that's the same family. And they made those sacrifices. And so for people to back away from this, to me, is making sacrilege out of their sacrifices.
I smell what you're stepping in. You mentioned that previously. I see where you're coming from. So, Bart, thank you.
My pleasure.
This was incredible. It's odd to think that the guy that planned the grassroots effort of Proposition 8 now is just sitting in a blue shirt in the Ward Radio studio.
Just some schlub.
You just what's how do you say schlub in Greek? Your family is Greek?
I don't know.
Oh, you don't know? Okay.
I speak more Yiddish than I do Greek.
Oh, wow. That's funny. That's going to be another great podcast for another day. So anyway, let us know what you guys think in the comments below. Did your family live in California during Proposition 8? Were you tangentially affected by it? Let's keep the conversation going below. For this and more, please check us out at wardradio.com.